Having defined what good is, what a happy ending is, how is it that we can be confident that everything will end up there in a state of conscious, sustainable, intelligent well-being, meaning low levels of energy consumption for high levels of sustainable well-being? For life to continue, of course, you've got to have more than a 1-1 ratio, because if you put 1 unit of energy in and get 1 unit of sustainable well-being out, you've just got a loop. You've got to have a profit. You've got to have 1 unit of energy to 2 units of sustainable well-being, and then another unit of energy to 2 more units. And then you have an expansive cycle where life moves into existence. You also, given that every human action is motivated by the desire to feel sustainably better and avoid feeling chronically worse, you've got to have a path of action that feels better. Because if I get out of bed and feel worse, and brush my teeth and feel worse, and put on my clothes and feel even worse, and eat breakfast and feel worse, I'm going to go bankrupt in motivation very rapidly. And so I've got to feel better than the effort of energy, or I just don't move. I just say, you know what? I'm not getting out of bed. I'm not going to take the next breath. I'm not going to eat because it doesn't make me feel any better. So you need a reality in which the combination of the fear of avoiding pain and the desire to feel better motivates enough activity for existence to continue, or the species dies out. Everyone just says, yeah, not worth it. It's not worth it to get out of bed. It's not worth it to eat. It's not worth it to collect water. It's not worth it to go pay taxes. It's just not worth it. And so that's the end of life, basically, because some other energy pattern that thinks it's worth it will consume the body. The germs are not going to say, this guy's a little bit over the hill. I'm not going to bother biodegrading this body. Mold, germs, algae, coyotes, whatever it is, crows, whatever, vultures, they will consume the energy in this body if, I don't think it's worth it. So the rest of life will continue, but the particular iterative experiment and pattern that is human life would just stop if within that framework, if everyone decides it's not worth the effort. And so human life continues to the extent that a certain number of human beings believe that sustaining their own life is worth it. And this is why the suicide to life ratio is in some ways an indication, not whether life is worth it, but whether life within a cult, life within one's culture is worth it. Because very few chimpanzees commit suicide. Very few crows commit suicide. But within the paradigm of human cultures, a cult can set up a pleasure-reward system that is so complex and inefficient, that is so backwards, that people having to do this, so that they can do this, and this, so that they can do this, and this, so that they can do that, so that they can feel good. Now that's a fucked up cult. And that's a lot of what we're dealing with today. It's this roundabout maze of, it's like, oh my goodness, I've got to do all that just to get here? you think of the efficiencies of cults, et cetera, and you think of chimpanzees, for example. Chimpanzee out in the forest, 100% organic food, unless people went out and put chemicals on it. The chimps aren't chemicalizing their food, so they've got 100% organic food. 100% easy place to sleep. No one tells a chimp that he's homeless. Sorry, you're homeless, move along, right? No, chimps sleep anywhere they want to sleep. Chimps do not have a mortgage. No one comes along and says, fill in the census. Oh, again, another census. I better commit suicide, said the chimp. So no, nobody comes along and says, fill out the census. Why? Because we're gathering data. Why? So that we can report the data. And then you have to read the data to be an educated person. Oh, my goodness. They just don't deal with this. So they don't fill out the census. They don't pay a mortgage. They don't get taxed on their mortgage. Then they don't have to have insurance on the mortgage that they don't have. They don't have to have a car to drive to work, so they don't have to have insurance. They eat. They sleep when they're tired. They have sex when they want to have sex. And do it all over again. It's not a bad life if you are a chimp, meaning you enjoy eating, you enjoy having sex, you enjoy living, you enjoy swinging through the trees, practicing gymnastic exercises. Sex is always great. It always feels wonderful. You get to see, your offspring one day they'll evolve into being humans when they can pay mortgages, get up and do jobs that they dislike, and go through elaborate rituals before they can have sex. Oh, that's not the right person. Nope. I don't like beards. Okay, fine, start over again. Then that's what if chimps? I'm not gonna have sex with. They have a beard. Which chimp doesn't? It's just my preference. No beards. And so what? The chimp species disappears overnight because all chimps have beards, and enough females or males decided they weren't going to have sex with a bearded woman, right? And so there's the end of the species. And the beautiful thing, of course, with life, though, is that 99% of all species are destined for extinction anyway. It doesn't matter if an arcane, obtuse species that makes eating, having sex, and sleeping so difficult that half the people would rather get sick, half the people would rather commit suicide, half the people just don't want to get out of bed because of the extreme circuitous route that their cult puts them through in order to get these basic things done, eating, sleeping, and having sex, and playing a little bit, enjoying. Like, how far do you have to send someone off into left field before they can come back and do what a chimp does for free every day that they feel like, with no particular schedule? A chimp doesn't have a drill sergeant, come on, left, right, 4 a.m. What kind of a chimp are you? No, the chimp don't bother inventing these things. So they have a very efficient route, to these things. So 99% of all species, they're just life's experiments. But life wins either way. If humans figure out how to be more intelligent than chimps, meaning how to have more sex, sleep better, eat better food without a mortgage and this and that, then life's hooray, we've got a winner, right? But if human beings keep making it harder and harder to do the basic things, to eat, sleep, have sex, play, fiddle around with things, then they'll die out. And another species that, is, as, maybe we'll just go back to chimps, where they're still doing that well, with very little effort. They're not deforesting the planet. They're swinging through like gym bars. They don't have to go to the gym. I got to go to the gym. The chimp just swinging through they've got their own gym anywhere they want it. They don't have to have a gym membership. So they're very intelligent, very efficient. They consume relatively little amounts of energy and generate large amounts of sustainable well-being. They're doing their gym work while they're eating, while they're doing this. They're exploring, they're doing various things. Many chimps have far more sex than many cult members of human beings. Oh, I'm too old, I'm too young, the chimps don't worry about this. You want to have sex? Let's have sex. It's that simple. And so, there you have, a winning species. And obviously the chimps did win enough that they also then evolved into human beings. But human beings have also devolved in certain segments to be less intelligent than chimps. They spend vast amounts of energy to finally be able to eat, sleep, and have sex more poorly and infrequently than their ancestors, and simultaneously destroy their host body 1,000 times more than the chimps do. Chimps aren't deforesting. They're not overfishing. So a chimp is 1,000 times more intelligent in the larger schema of things than a human being, because they cause 1,000 times less damage, number one. They don't have mortgages, etc. They've all got homes. And they're not that busy shaming and, blaming. They have their wars, but they don't make sure that the entire planet, goes up in smoke just so they can have a tiff with another chimp thing. And so the chimps will continue, in that dynamic. They haven't jeopardized chimp life. Unfortunately, they gave rise to human beings, which in turn have jeopardized the chimps that gave birth to them. We haven't learned gratitude to the chimps, like, oh my gosh, thank you for life. We'll make sure not to blow you up along with all of us, because we're so obsessed with sustaining our cult identities. You see, the Arabs have cut the world up into this way, and we've cut it up into this way, and this has got to stop. If the entire planet has to go up in nuclear warfare, my goodness, sorry, chimps, you gave birth to us, but, we know the world is this way. And the Arabs, oh my goodness, they know the world is that way. And, if life has to go, we're going to have to press the trigger. I hope you understand, chimps. We are more evolved than you, obviously, because we're blowing up the world over the delineation of language, and you're just eating organic food and haven't rendered more and more of your people homeless because they couldn't afford $500,000 homes in jobs they didn't like doing. So sorry, chimps, we're going to blow you all up because we are right. And that's all that matters. Anyway, hopefully you will evolve to our level one day, and you too can blow up your host body arguing about semantics. So, this is, a questionable experiment in life's development. But you see, life has billions of other planets. So, and life has an infinite number of times. So yes, of course, it would be a tremendous tragedy for humans and all the species on the planet if human beings decided to enter nuclear warfare and blow everyone up and reduce the Earth back by, let's say, 1 billion years, 24 billion years. Let's say nuclear warfare reduced the planet back to 1 billion, by 1 billion years. Well, we're always dealing with setbacks. In the 24 billion year life history, how many humans didn't spend one of those 24 years making a big mistake and then having to recover from it? So, life has plans. Life has backup plans, because with its protocol, if anytime it gives birth to a species that is potentially going to destroy its own foundation, then that's a wrong turn. Like, yeah, that wasn't a great idea. So then life goes back to square one, back to basic. Wipe it out, okay, back to basics. Let's start seeing what happens this time, right? And if you do enough bets, you see, and life has an infinite number of dice because it keeps creating more and more dice because the universe just keeps getting bigger. And the particles within the universe keep getting older, and they keep mating. They keep having sex. They keep creating new and interesting things. So if we identify with life, we have nothing to worry about because life is a winner. In the larger scale of things, life is a winner. Everything was once less than this big. So if we identify with life, we've got it made. This planet almost got there, and then they had an argument over religion. And that was that one. This planet over here, there's more than 1 billion life-affirming planets in the definition of life that we know about so far, and that's up by almost a billion. If you go back 100 years ago and say how many life-affirming planets, you'll find lots of men in white coats saying, oh, absolutely nothing at all. 100 years later, suddenly there's 1 billion planets, apparently. Where did they come from? No, people are just as good as creating worlds as life, apparently. That didn't exist 100 years ago. Oh, now there's 1 billion life-affirming planets. Maybe in another 100 years, there'll be 1 trillion life-affirming planets. We'll have new technology. Now we understood this, and now there's 1 trillion life-affirming planets. 100 years after that, there could be 1 trillion. Who knows? We just keep changing our story. Anyway, we're up to 1 billion life-affirming planets. Of course, none of them could be as good as us, naturally. We're already so much more superior than the chimps who didn't realize that they could destroy their entire host body if they just spent enough time, money, and natural resources creating mega weapons as no doubt a path to sustainable well-being. This is the bounce process, but once we have blown up the Russians faster than they've blown up us, and once we have lived through the nuclear radiation over the next 10,000 years, and once our children have forgiven us for our stupidity, then we'll be happy, we imagine. But that's the idea. We're doing this to be happy. We're just not necessarily very good at it because we're relatively young in a 24 billion year old universe. How old are we? 100,000 years, 1 million years, 10 million years? How old are we? Of course, it's a gradual continuum. Are we starting at slime? Are we, was slime? Do we go back to the Big Bang? Are we 24 billion years old? And this is just our latest experiments. These are all tricks of the mind. How do you want to cut the world into bits according to your paradigms, your beliefs, your language? And you can have as many tricks as you want. You can just keep dividing things up and arguing why they're the better way to do things than something else. Of course, none of the divisions make any difference in the long run. Because all things are interconnected. So how does things end up well? Let's say here we are. Every human being is in a certain amount of pain. What is pain? Separation from something, longing for something. I want this, but I have this. I want to feel good, but I feel bad. That's pain. I want to be in control, but I feel helpless. That's pain. It feels bad. I want to have a lot of money, but I don't have a lot of money. I feel pain. I feel bad. So pain is the measurement of here's where we want to be, here's where we are. Pain is the gap between that. So every human being has a certain amount of pain, and every human being has a certain amount of pleasure. I want to be alive, and I am alive. I want to be able to talk English, and lo and behold, I speak English. So there's a certain amount of desire that has not been satiated, that's pain, and there's a certain amount of desire that has been satiated, that's preference, joy, pleasure, well-being. So we've all satiated a certain amount. You probably want to see, if you're looking at this, you have eyes, so you got joy and happiness and well-being there. You probably want something that isn't happening here, and so that's where you're annoyed or discomfort, so you have some pain. So every human being has a certain amount of well-being and a certain amount of pain. And every well-being wants more well-being and less pain, which is a source of pain. I want more, but I have this. That's pain. I want less pain, but I just created more pain by wanting more than I have. So every human being has a certain amount of pain. Now, what happens when you have pain? Number one is an increase in awareness. You have an increase in awareness. Pain, you just say, how are you feeling? I'm feeling great. Feeling great. Well, how great? Well, I'm just feeling great, right? How are you feeling? I'm feeling bad. How bad? Well, you should say this and that. So when you have pain, awareness goes up. You have generally long lists of reasons. This didn't happen. So there's a lot of understanding that comes with pain, right? So when you feel bad, the mind always goes to why. Why do you feel bad? Well, there's this reason. Oh, that's very bad. And there's this reason. Oh, it's terrible. This one, terrible. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's a lot of pain. And this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Now, all of these things that you're now aware of, you could call them diagnoses of disease, because disease, pain, is the same thing. I want ease. I have dis-ease. What is dis-ease? It's the absence of ease. So I want ease, but I don't have ease, so I'm in pain. And so we lump all these up together and we say, yep, this is my block of pain. Now, usually with people in pain, the pain feels big, right? And what's going well? Oh, nothing's going well. Well, you're breathing, aren't you? The oceans didn't evaporate. Oh, yes, but I'm absorbed in my pain. I'm focusing on all this pain. So here's all this block of pain. And you get awareness. Well, there's this bit. How does that work? Well, that bit connects to that. My goodness. And then this bit connects with it. My goodness. And this bit connects in here, and that bit does, and then this bit leads to this. First my uncle tells my aunt, how fat she is. And then my aunt tells my uncle what a jerk he is, right? So then now they've got fat and jerk, and then they go round and round on that one a bit, and big pain blows up. And now there's even more pain. Oh my goodness, we have to add to the box, right? So the pain often keeps creating pain until you understand the system, the process, the protocol, the recipe of creating pain. Now, pain leads to more pain, which leads to more awareness, which leads to more pain, which leads to more awareness. Pain and awareness bounce back and forth until you understand the recipe that created the pain in the first place. Oh, you mean if I stop calling Aunt fat and she stops calling me this and this, that then we feel better? No, that takes care of that bit of pain. And you mean if I stop eating carbohydrates and sugar and dairy and stuff, I stop being fat? Oh, my goodness. And do you mean to say that if we stop invading other countries, they'll stop bombing us and hating us? Oh, my goodness, amazing. And so there's an awareness that emerges out of the suffering dynamic. And out of that awareness comes change. Why? Because everyone wants to feel better and doesn't want to feel bad. So at some point, if you realize this is how we feel bad and here's how we feel better, you stop doing the things, you stop spending energy to feel worse. Well, that's a good start. Don't invest energy to feel worse. That's the first step in intelligence, right? You want to feel good, you don't want to feel bad. Stop spending energy to feel worse. Well, what do we do next? Well, we spend that energy that we saved making things worse, we spend it to feel better. Let's give it a shot, okay? Feel better. Feel better? Everyone feel? Anyone want to go back and feel miserable again? Yeah, let's go back and feel miserable. I don't get it. Okay, fine, let's do that again. But incompetence always leads to pain, which leads to awareness, which leads to competence. Incompetence leads to pain, which leads to awareness, which leads to competence, which leads to less pain. So that system ends up with less pain. And we've already established what the goal is, which is conscious, sustainable fun. Why do we want fun? Because it's less painful than not having fun. We all want to avoid pain. We all want conscious, sustainable fun. Now, along the way, there's short-term unsustainable fun. It's called cocaine. You're feeling bad? Boy, do I have something for you. Take a little bit of this powder. Voila! Several hours of fun, right? It just happens that you're in a country where fun is illegal. So one of many failed experiments in a dysfunctional cult, you will now be arrested for having fun unsustainably. Oh, I see. But in the name of the war on drugs, it seems like it's a war on me or my family. But nonetheless, I guess it's more politically expedient to pretend that we're conducting a war on powders. Let's fight the powder, kill them, shoot the powder up, get them. Well, why invent delusions? Well, apparently politicians thought it was more fun to invent a delusion and fight the delusion rather than to admit that they were taking public money to attack their own people. And people liked that, so that they got elected. That's the game, right? It doesn't work very well, yes, so what are you going to do about it? Well, I guess we'll keep getting worse and worse and misery, and then we'll have a revolution. We'll fight against the status quo because the status quo is so miserable that even going to war with it would be better than going along with this horrible status quo. So fine, we'll get a few generations of improvement, and then we'll, redo it all again. Why? Because we don't want to be bothering studying history. We're too expedient, right? So we need to be thinking a little bit more long-term. That's more sustainable. But we don't want to. We want the short-term fun. We don't want to have to think, right? We just want to, do what we feel like doing and not think about it. But that doesn't lead to sustainable conscious fun as much as thinking about it. Well, we'll deal with that when we deal with it, right? And so this kind of goes back and forth. Life's got 10 trillion years. If you want to dink around for a few 100,000 years going nowhere, life's got time. Will you destroy your planet, your host body, before you have time and energy and skill to create another one? And of course, if you have the time, the energy, and the skill to create another one, but it takes 1,000 times more energy to go repopulate Mars than it does to just plant 1,000 trees per person for the next 100 years and stop fighting people because they break up the world in a different way. Why not do that? Let's spend 1,000 times more energy to go live on a dusty, ugly, surface. Well, if you're so dumb you want to do that rather than to just stop fighting, you're probably not smart enough to do a good job over there. So it's kind of, it's life's great strategy. When you're really dumb, you fail at everything. And when you fail at everything, it doesn't replicate. Thank goodness. And life doesn't have to deal with the fallout of stupidity replicating itself indefinitely. If stupidity kills itself because it's so dumb, then life doesn't have to deal with it. And that's a win for life. You see, life ends up what? With competent species that know what they're doing. So, conscious, sustainable fun is inevitable for them. And if we get it together and we figure it out and we know what we're doing, by definition, knowing what we're doing moves the needle towards conscious, sustainable fun. So, pain leads to consciousness, which increases competence. First, pain leads to motivation for change and creates awareness of what needs to be changed. Not a bad system for life, is it? So, change happens when the pain gets high enough. Now, you can partner with life and see where things are going, and you can change before all that pain. Or you can wait till it's just like, oh my gosh, I'd love to continue this ridiculous argument about how to cut the world up in different. I'm just in too much pain right now. Let's do that later, after we get out of the fire, right? You know, we were so busy arguing about how to cut the world in half that we, in our own minds, with language, that one of us let a fire get loose in the forest. Now let's all get out of the forest, you know, killing large segments of our host body along the way, and escape, and then we can go back to the arguments that made us so unaware of what we were doing. And so, you know, this can go on for a long time, but it inevitably leads to conscious, sustainable fun, because it's more fun to have conscious, sustainable fun than it isn't. So even just in trial and error, if you just said, you know, we're going to start in the center and some of us will do this, we go out in all directions, some people are going to try conscious, sustainable fun. And they're going to discover, lo and behold, that it feels better. And when it feels better, pain is a tax on the body. You know, if you've ever woken up in like 7 out of 10 pain, you say, well, move. And it's like, it's too painful. I'm not moving. Think. It's too painful to think. You know, it's like pain is a tax on the body. So the people who are in more well-being, who don't move into more and more pain, are going to have more energy. And so that's another way that then some of those are going to try doing things consciously, sustainably, and fun, and other people are going to join them. You look like you're having fun over there. We are. Well, can I join you? Can I copy what you're doing? That's what people do. As soon as we find out where the party is, who's having the most sustainable fun, and of course, you know, in a low intelligent culture, you know, who's poisoning their liver the most effectively to escape their feelings, which we don't know how to deal with. That's more fun than dealing with our feelings that we don't know how to deal with in an emotionally illiterate culture. So let's drink, you know, some more to numb out the feelings. You know, but nonetheless, regardless of the evolutionary stage, oh, you're having a delicious meditation, you're doing great yoga, you're having wonderful conversations over here. Let's go and join there. Everyone is drawn to what they perceive feels good. Now, if what they perceive feels good doesn't actually feel good, then most people are curious. There's a curiosity drive to why. And then once they figure it out, then they go to another place they think feels good. Everyone is trying to feel good, and they're trying to avoid feeling bad. And they're all copying and experimenting and looking. And of course, with the information age, we can look across the pond, right? We can look over in Denmark. What beautiful parks. And you love your job? You get paid paternity leave? I want that. I want that, right? That's human nature. So when you create an internet that shares data across the entire planet, what you get is dissatisfaction in the very dysfunctional areas of the species. You get dissatisfaction. Why is it that the Danish have such better lives than we do? Why do they get paid to go to college when I have $200,000 of debt? I don't like that. I'm not going to vote for people like that. So you have movement, experimentation, failure, lies, deception. But for lies and deception to happen, everyone has to agree to believe a liar, which means they have to agree not to see clearly. And if they don't see clearly, they experience massive amounts of pain. The pain leads to seeing more clearly. Oh my gosh, the politicians are lying to me. What am I going to do? Well, I have to find someone who's not lying to me. Let's see. Well, that's going to take some work, but it'll be better in the long run. So you have a continuous state of experimentation and evolution. So it's guaranteed to end well for life. Now, if a species doesn't destroy itself in the meantime, either indirectly by destroying its host, it'd be like being you climb up a tree, you have a tree up here, you climb up, sitting here, and you have a chainsaw, and you chainsaw right below yourself, and then eventually you succeed. I've cut through the tree, hooray! And then you fall over and die. But that's the problem of the cult myopia that pretends that we're isolated individuals as opposed to part of an interconnected ecology. Well, you watch people dying from thinking about being isolated individuals and who don't understand the interconnectedness of things, and you realize that's not a good idea. And so the people who remain say, let's emphasize interdependence and ecology because it feels better than dying because we didn't understand that we were undercutting our own position by destroying our foundation in an ecology that we're a part of. So how about that? So if the species survives, doesn't make a mistake that is so fatal that it survives, then it will continue to experiment and we'll go through that. And as long as a part of the species survives, maybe in another billion years, another rendition of humanity creates nuclear weapons again, thinks it's a great idea to argue over semantics and destroy other people, and then gets wiped back again a billion years. 5 or 6 people survive. They go do this. Could happen 100 times. And the same people that don't want to deal with history and don't want to look at this, and let's ignore what's happening there because it feels good in the moment. We do that, and we do that. And then one time a species comes along and says, you know what? This has been going on for too long. I've read the records. This has happened 100 times. Let's do it this way. And then someone listens to them. The species is intelligent enough to pay attention. And so they take a new path, a path that yields more sustainable well-being than the path before. So it's an inevitable thing because once you get up here into conscious, sustainable well-being, why would you come down again? Why would you say, you know what, it's so much fun up here, and I know exactly how to have fun, and I know exactly how to fail. I think I'll be miserable on purpose. Why would I do that? If I'm conscious, if I'm competent, if my fun is sustainable, because there's lots of ways to have fun. You can have fun destroying things. You can have fun, in the short term, like cocaine, it floods your chemicals, but then it depletes and you're left even worse off at the other side. That's not sustainable fun. Now, if you watch someone else do this, this, and this, and they feel better and better and better, and you're feeling worse and you've got accurate data, well, why would you do it? If you believe you need to be punished, so Julie will love you, going back to the beginning, then okay, then how much are you going to destroy yourself before you bounce up? And will people copy you? When this other person just said, let's learn to apologize. It's more efficient, more intelligent. Let's learn to apologize. And then let's teach Julie how to forgive. Because there's going to be mistakes, and if she wants to hold a grudge for 20 years, she's going to have to remember and remind herself why she's so upset for 20 years. That's not very intelligent. rather than she could teach someone how not to do that again. That could take a year. She could just teach someone how not and why that's the wrong way to go about what? Conscious, sustainable fun. So it's bound. There's nowhere else for it to go because of how we're wired. We cannot change the wiring of life, which is that life wants to feel good. It wants to create. It wants to grow. It wants to get bigger. It wants to succeed. And we're part of life. We are part of life. And life wants to feel good. It wants to grow. And it wants to succeed. Now, how do you know that life wants to feel good? Well, we're part of life. Despite all the cult programming, do you want to feel good? You're part of life. Do you know any part of life that says, oh, a rabbit or an elephant? You know anything that, when you taser it, it says, oh, let's have some more of that? I mean, give me a break. Life wants to feel good. Every part of life that we know, to the extent that it has agency, does the thing that makes it feel good. Now, admittedly, short-sighted feeling good often leads over a cliff, but that just develops and breeds for vision. Because all the short-term feel-good forms of life go over cliffs, die, which doesn't feel very good, and then the long-term visionary parts of life remain. And so life breeds for long-term feeling good. Why? Because life has a plan. Life is not going anywhere. 24 billion years is a speck. 20 trillion years, a lot bigger. A trillion years, a lot bigger. Life's not going anywhere. And for life to be around in 10 trillion years, in a state of higher intelligence than is going on here, and we have to acknowledge that, generally speaking, reality seems to be quite fractal, meaning what happens in a very small part of life is often indicative of the larger program. If you look at an individual, they often have a lot to do with their family. And if you look at the family, they often have a lot to do with their cult. And if you look at the cult, it's a lot to do with the species. And if you look at the species, a lot to do with the planet. You look at the planet, it has a lot to do with the universe. I mean, you don't go and find square planets anywhere. Mars isn't square. Our planet is round, Mars. So there's a lot of fractal echoing within reality as far as we can tell. And life seems to be breeding for intelligence, long-term sustainable well-being, with a willingness to experiment and try lots of different things, which guarantees that some of them will work. Some of the planets capable of producing life over the next trillion years are going to produce sustainable, competent fun. Now, is it more fun to be able to visit other planets? It is. Is it more fun to be able to do all kinds of things that we don't believe are possible today? Yes, it is. If you were to tell a scientist, Galileo, go back to Galileo and say, hey, Galileo, look at this phone here. I can dial anyone I want on all the countries you don't even know that exist. 500 years ago, the Americans haven't been. Here. Let's. You see this? This is a phone, right? Is this possible? No. It's a miracle. It's a miracle, right? Well, that's 500 years. Now, scientists are just as arrogant as any other part of the cult, so they like to be right. And one of the ways that scientists like to be right is by pretending that all the major things have been discovered, right? Everything known. So there's a long history in science of people saying all the great inventions have all been discovered, and we've cracked the egg, there's no big new things. And then they die in their arrogance and ignorance, and we go out and create 1,000 times more than they thought was possible. Well, If you ask people today, can you teleport? Can you, could you think a thought and populate a planet? In fact, give birth to a planet. Give birth to a planet, populate a planet, put an ecosystem in place, just press enter, and a billion years from now, there will be a life-affirming planet that is another iteration of our own. No, that's not possible. We've already discovered this. We already know that this and that and that. We all know that that's absolutely impossible until it isn't. Is it not possible for 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, a million years, a billion years? Not possible in a billion years? You're certain about that, right? You've only been around for 1 second of existence, and you know the infinite possibility field of the universe? Of course you do. You're a cult human being. How about 1 trillion years? We're here after 1 billion. How about 1 trillion years? Press enter, another planet comes into existence. Press enter, another one comes into existence. Press enter, another one comes into existence. Is that possible? Well, we don't understand how it could be done. That's a fair thing to say about almost anything in human history from the beginning. Slime didn't know how to do cell phones. People don't know how to do planets. Is it a bigger leap to go from slime to cell phones than human beings to planets? So, is it more fun to have a bigger possibility field than a smaller one? Like, if you could, is it more fun to choose between something, let's say your favorite ice cream is strawberry. Let's just say, favorite ice cream, strawberry. Is it more fun to live in a universe where the only ice cream is strawberry? Or is it more fun to live in a universe where even though you will always pick strawberry, you get your whole life with 3,000 flavors. Why limit it to 200? You know, they've got those at Baskin & Robbins today. Let's evolve, right? Let's get it up to 3,000 flavors, 5,000 flavors of ice cream, right? Let's just keep inventing. Let's just have 5,000 flavors. Now, we don't want to waste decades testing 5,000 flavors, so let's speed up time. Let's use virtual simulation. You can taste 5,000 flavors of ice cream in one program that takes an hour. Okay, press play. Every second you have 30 flavors, every second. Okay. Oh, I like that one. I didn't know. You see, you thought you liked strawberry the best, but it turns out you like strawberry with a little bit of Grand Marnier. That's what that is. How about it? Okay, that's my new favorite thing. We'll continue, you know. Would you like choice? Would you like more choice? Everyone has always said yes to that. Now, paradoxically, the fear of loss seems to kick in, and many people who have too many choices are less happy. They still choose the choice. People choose a lot of choice. Now, that means that there's going to continue to be a market for options, which means that creativity, which means iteration, deviation, and some of those options are going to have unexpected synergies. I didn't know that there was a chemical in the body that gets triggered if I have an orgasm, and then strawberry and Grand Marnier, and then we talk about God, as a woman, of course. Then there's a match. There's something that happens, and I didn't know it existed, but I felt it in my body. That recipe released a concoction of nerve stimulation that is the most interesting thing I've ever experienced. Let's do it again. You see, the more things you invent in the world, the more the possibility field grows. Now, for a possibility field to grow, it has to grow in all directions. Now, if you're cutting the world into good and bad, that means the possibility for something bad grows at the same rate as the possibility for something good. But if you like choice and you like freedom and you think it's fun to choose and know and understand yourself, then you need polarity. It's not a very meaningful choice to say, I choose to love you, if there's no other choice. But it's a pretty meaningful choice to say, you are annoying, as we all know, but I think you're valuable anyway. I'm going to choose to love you despite how annoying you are. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And you could have loved that annoying person over there and that annoying person over there, but you chose to love me. Out of all the annoying people you could have loved, you chose to love me. I'm honored. By what? By choice. There's not much of a choice to say, I'm interconnected with all things for all time. You're just me, really. And I'm not bothered to spend the energy to hold a grudge. So of course I love you, just like I love every other thing that has ever been. Wow, I'm really honored. Oh, no big deal. I just love everything all the time for all reasons. And you just happen to be some random part of everything. Oh, it doesn't generate certain states that we want. I want to be specially loved. Because you like the dimple. Oh, isn't that dimple nice? I don't like I want something that's personal. Well, that's what the ego generates. I am a person. I am disconnected from my my underlying ecology. Now, there may be a point in evolution in this drive to sustainable well-being where it's more ecstatic. It's more beautiful to blend with more of what is. We'll have to see. But most people want choice. Most people compare things. This made me this happy, that made me that happy. This person is a good lover, but this person, oh, what an amazing lover. They like to compare things, and they like to do more of the thing that really works for them. Well, that ends up with a life of more happiness over time. What happens when we create clones? What happens when we create virtual reality? In other words, virtual clones. When I can put on a helmet and a suit, we're only about 10 years away from this. Why? Because people want options. People are rewarding options. And so they're growing more and more options. Now imagine when the universal net gets out. So far, we've got the internet where more and more humans have access to data and in their language at least can see lots of stuff going on. Imagine when the internet gets out, the internet universe gets out, and we, among all the billions of planets out there, get to see which forms of life are 1,000 times happier than ours. We get our dogmas and all this. This is the way it is, and no one else. And then we get a call from star number 689 in 30 light years away. Well, it can't be done. Of course not. Just like cell phones, just like cars, just like jets, absolutely cannot be done. And if it could be done, there's absolutely no point of it. We all know this can't happen until it can. 1 billion years, 1 trillion years, 10 trillion years, 1,000 trillion years. Is your mind that big? You're still sure it can't be done? Well, you may be, and then you're dead. But your trillionth grandson may have a more open mind than you. It does seem to work like that, and thank heavens we're not stuck in the stone ages of stupidity. But anyway, your trillionth grandson actually has an open mind, hooks into the interplanet internet, and sees, oh, I knew it. There are people living more intelligently than we are. Let's learn from them. It's a little bit of an evolutionary step to go from let's kill the people who know more than we do to let's learn from them. But there's hope for humanity. It may just decide to learn. from success and fun rather than kill it. Why not, right? Give it a try. We've done the killing thing for a while. We're still miserable. Let's try the learning thing. Okay, so trillion years we're learning. My goodness, that's how you do things 10,000 times more efficiently than we did? Oh, you do pods. You don't do nuclear, you do pods. I see. How many people to a pod? 7 to 12? I see. And one person does this, one person does this, da, da, da. And how do you use, oh, you don't use a mammalian body. You use an electrical body. I see. How do you contract that? Well, you did this and this and this and this and this. I see. And you're enjoying that more? You don't miss physical bodies? Oh, well, let's give it a try. Let's report back, right? See, in an evolutionary framework, and what? Electrical bodies consume 1/10 of the energy of physical bodies? Amazing. Let's give it a shot. Suddenly the whole planet saves 90% on its electricity bill, and there aren't physical bodies eating up the planet and the fish supplies, and so the planet can be lush and weather can stabilize, and here we are. We're now electric pods in the atmosphere. And we think it's a great idea because it feels good, because it's intelligent relative to what we're doing so far. And while we're doing that and checking out, oh, we never called this planet. We never called this species over here. They're doing it. Oh, they're doing it even better. Let's go back to having physical bodies and doing this and this and this. Evolution, curiosity, experimentation. You know you're going to succeed. Here's the formula. Every year, life times life equals life exponentially, right? So life multiplied by life, all the mating that occurs, creates an exponential increase in life. That's the first part of the formula. Life equals wanting to feel good equals experimentation. So the experiment is getting bigger and bigger every single year. Life is getting exponentially bigger, and life is experimenting. Within the possibility field equals life feeling good. Meaning, in all possibility, it is possible for life to feel good. Technology multiplied by technology equals more awareness. More awareness equals the possibility of change, of learning, of teaching, of response. And then, what? Life feels good faster. You don't have to do every experiment your own way. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just call up the global internet. Why the global internet? Call up the solar system internet. Call up the galaxy internet. Call up the universe internet. There is an endless amount of time. Not for this planet, but for life. There is an endless amount of time. This species may die with its head in the sand, convinced that it was right, like 95% of all species in human history. 95% of all the species on this planet are now dead. They all thought they were right. That's why they continued doing the things they were doing until they were dead. But if we are part of an interconnected ecology, number one, if energy is not created or destroyed but simply changes, then what life is doing is it's taking its most outdated patterns of energy and phasing them out. and then taking its most advanced forms of energy and making space for them and phasing them in. That's what life's doing. Now, if you identify as being one of the parts, one of the people that's being phased out, oh my goodness, this is terrible, the worst thing imaginable. But if you identify with being life and say, oh my gosh, all the atoms that are me now, they're all going to disperse, and then they're going to recoalesce into something far more fun, far more successful, far more competent. And then I'll be that. Thank you, life. I get to exist in a more intelligent form. I love it. Progress. You see, it's a matter of perspective. That, by everything that we know, okay, so this will, this will be a black hole here, this, that, the sun will explode, yeah. The universe is really big. What will happen on the other side, right? What will that all turn into? If you're life, things are looking up. 24 billion years, long way to go. You're a baby universe. In another trillion years, just what might you be made of? How might you be interconnecting with yourself? Because one of the things that this suggests is that power, competency, and technology will keep going up on an exponential curve through one species or another on one planet or another in one galaxy or another. Why? Because it feels good, because it's fun, because we're drawn to that. Now, imagine, so there's more and more dice, by the way, being created if this was a game. And there's an infinite number of time to roll the dice. And the goal is self-evident, conscious, sustainable fun, because it's fun to have sustainable fun rather than unsustainable fun. And it's fun to know how to do it rather than not know how to do it, so you figure out how to do it. You don't just want to, I have no idea why this feels good, it just does, and it could stop at any point. That's not as fun as saying, I know exactly what recipe I used to create this level of fun. And I'll do it again differently this way. I'll change it a bit this way, and that's fun too. It's fun to learn. Why learn? Because it's fun. Why succeed? Because it's more fun than to fail. So nature's creating more dice every single year. And while people have a lifespan, life doesn't. We have no reason to expect that the universe is going to end in the next trillion years. It might, but we certainly don't have any indication. From birth to the present, life has been succeeding wildly at creating more and more patterns of energy, figuring out how they play together, creating more patterns of energy, more time and space to explore them in, and it's just going gangbusters. Now, if you wanted a lucky 7 and you only had 1 dice, it'd be tough. No good, right? You got 2 dice, you're going to get a lucky 7, 1 in 7 rolls. But if you've got 10 trillion dice, you're going to get many lucky 7s at every single roll. And if you're rolling every single second, another roll of the dice, another roll of the dice, you're going to get lucky 7s like mad. And the greatest lucky 7 that life can produce is a conscious entity, a conscious pattern of energy, that knows how it is created and how to perpetuate itself, that knows how to vastly accelerate the evolution of life through synergies and intelligent design, and goes out and populates the universe. Sends out little probes and seeds so that in another trillion years, we're only 24 billion in, most of the planets, most of the masses are doing something good. This one will be a satellite system. This will be part of the galactic internet. This will be part of this. This will be part of that. Why? Because it's fun. It's more fun to have a universe that is teeming with possibility than it is to have a universe that's, you're stuck there. You're never leaving Earth. You don't like it? Tough. You don't like the politics? Tough. You're stuck there. That's not as much fun. Someone's going to rebel. Fuck it. Let's build rockets. Let's do this. And over 1 trillion years, some of them are going to succeed. And the ones that succeed are going to replicate. Let's do it again. We did it on one planet. Let's do it for a solar system. And if those recipes work, life's doing pretty well on Earth. What if that all started with one probe? Someone sent some fungi and said, anytime you find a planet like this, land in here, and we'll wait because our lifespan is 24 billion years. We'll see it in our old age, right? What if these successful forms of terraforming are already occurring on a very large time scale, and they're waiting for us to mature and be interested? You see, Occam's razor is a form of laziness. Occam's razor basically is a scientific tenet just made out of thin air by Occam. Occam's razor. What's Occam's razor? Pick the simplest form that you can imagine for anything and make sure that your theory is the simplest thing that can be imagined, unless proven otherwise. Well, how about Dahlia's flood? Who's Dahlia? Just another person? Dahlia. How about the flood? If it can possibly be imagined, assume that it exists somewhere in time-space. However complex you can imagine it, it is, and then some, because your imagination is quite limited. There's a tiny human in one tiny part of time-space. And assume that it exists somewhere. And then the question is, does that particular complex form of imagination exist reliably or in a useful form for you on Earth? And see if it does. But know that both the simplest form and the more complex form exist, and it's just a matter of seeing which is most useful. All of the formula throughout this entire discussion point in a number of directions. One, increased possibility on an exponential scale, which means increased negative and increased positive possibility. You can't increase in only one direction. So increased possibility. Increased competence, increased awareness, increased complexity. And out of that, an innate drive towards conscious, sustainable fun. At least for the band of consciousness that's, that humans are in and rabbits are in. If you shoot a rabbit with a pellet gun when it comes close to you and don't shoot it when it runs away from you, the rabbit will run away from you. Why? Because the rabbit wants to feel good and you've set up the conditions. It says if you get near to me, you're not going to feel good because I'm going to shoot you. Well, that band of life that is innately trying to feel sustainably better and avoid feeling chronically worse, that band of life that every human being in the history of humanity is a part of, is seeking conscious, sustainable fun. And with enough experimentation and enough billions of years, it's going to find it. The improbability is too great because the universe keeps getting bigger and more complex all the time. Once it finds it, the most conscious, sustainable fun is to consciously and sustainably have that fun, but increase the variety and complexity of that fun. And why not include terraforming the multiverse as one version of that? Why not in this media and that media? Why not just create more and more possibilities for conscious, sustainable fun? And allow the historical museum of torment to show the history of fun, because it's more fun to show how things got better and better and better than it is to not. So there will most likely be a history of suffering. We suffered this way, then we suffered this way, then we suffered this way, then we suffered this way. Then we started having a little fun, then we had a little bit more, then we had a little bit more, and here's where we are today. You can look at the museum and put on the goggles and, oh my goodness, gosh, that was absolutely horrible. Feeling alone in the universe, meaninglessness. Now, why is life going to have lots of meanings? Because it's fun, because we can invent them. It's more fun to have meaning than to have no meaning. So people will invent meanings like they always have. The nihilists of today are a distinct minority, a very distinct minorities that will die out soon enough because it's not fun to have no meaning when you can have lots of meanings. The meanings will change because it's fun to change them. It's fun to grow one meaning into another meaning and then create stories. We love stories, so we'll create them because they're fun. Stories will get more interesting because it's more interesting and it's more fun to have a more interesting story. When you're competent, you can keep creating exponential levels of fun because it's fun. Fun is the only self-referential energy that makes sense. We'll be successful because it's fun to be successful. We'll have fun because it's fun to have fun. We'll love because it's fun to love. We'll be healthy because it's fun to be healthy. We'll laugh because it's fun to laugh. We'll live as long as we want to because it's fun to live as long as we want to, rather than to be told you have to die at a certain day. More fun. So live a longer life that you feel like. And we'll die because it's fun to die, rather than be stuck in one identity for eternity. Now that may be a conscious, let's go through the program. Imagine all your molecules dissolving into your earth and this and that and the other. See the joy of the worm, identify, go through the program. Look at your body decomposing and becoming this. Maybe that's the fun version of death. To 3D, put it on and see the whole thing. And identify with this and this and this and this and all this stuff and reconnect with source, the underlying thread that connects us to all things. And then be a carrot. Be ingested into someone's body and become aware of their identity. And the myopia of the individual again. Maybe that's fun. Maybe it's fun to decide where to go in the program. I think I'll be born a hominid. No, I'll be born an owl. Why? Because it's fun. I want to see what it's like to be an owl. I want to fly around, this, that, and the other. It's more fun to forget in between life. Well, you can't fully focus on being an owl if you're aware of operating heavy equipment in some other lifetime. Being a pilot here, doing this. Having an orgasm and hooting at the same time. I mean, no. We're going to have some partitions. Why? Because it's more fun. Then I can run multiple programs, but they're, they don't, the owl doesn't stop hooting and start, dancing to some pop music playing in another lifetime, another existence. Why? Because it's more fun to have I want the purity, that's the pure owl, right? No bleed through. That's pure 5th century. I don't want any, the 5th century stops making any sense if the 20th century is bleeding into it. The priests are out proselytizing and telling everyone they're going to die in hell for being homosexual, and then you bring the priest into the 20th century and say, look, here's your pedophile Catholics, 5% of them, they're all going to hell. So what makes you think you're any different? You're going to turn in your other priests. I want a purist. I want pure. I want purity in between centuries, and this one led to this thing, and it's a nice equation. It's a clean equation. The first century leads very nicely into the second century, as long as the third equation, the third century doesn't, go back. Why? Because it's fun. Because it's fun. That's all you need. Once you have competency. Now, why do you have competency? Because it's fun. Because if you don't have fun, you have pain, you get awareness, which leads to competency. And once you have competency, you create more fun. And it's more fun to have competency, so you keep it. So competency is there. And if competency is growing on an exponential curve over trillions of years, what isn't possible a trillion years from now? Well, you just have to go back a trillion years. Let's go back 100,000. What wasn't possible there? Lighters weren't possible. Cars weren't possible. You would have been you'd have just said, well, I have no idea what he's talking about. Well, 200 years ago, you'd be put in an institution. If institutions were imported, 100,000 years ago, and someone was talking about cars and TVs and stuff, they would definitely say, this person is nuts. Let's lock him up. Because the imagination is too small to bridge the gap, to imagine what that was. So if that's 100,000 years and things are on an exponential curve, it should take less than 1,000 years for the future to be as different 1,000 years from now than it was 100,000 years and today. That's the nature of exponential time. So a trillion years from now, anyone who thinks they know what can't be done a trillion years from now is too dumb to know that they're dumb. And that's why they'll be sure that they're right, and that's fine. They're too dumb to know that they're dumb. A lot of people, a lot of us are too dumb to know that we're dumb in any number of areas. A trillion years is a very long time, but life's just getting started. And another trillion years and another trillion years on those exponential curves, it becomes unrecognizable. And we are a part, we are the seed. That whole pattern of energy, like the pattern of the sunflower, lies within us. A trillion years from now, there are mathematical formations of energy. There are patterns of energy that are already inside this seed. And they can look back at that seed in the same way we look back at the monkeys on the African plains. Because we haven't seen anything yet. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know that we don't know. But what we can say with a relative degree of certainty is that it's more fun to have fun than it is not to have fun. That competency is on an exponential curve, that we will become more competent in pain and failure, and we will become more competent in success and joy. So we will become more competent regardless what happens. And at a certain point in competency, anything that we cannot currently imagine is possible. But the desire for conscious, sustainable fun, that's self-referential. It's fun because it's fun because it's fun. It's fun to be more conscious. It's fun to be more sustainable. It's fun to have more fun. And that's where things are headed. To the extent that we have freedom and awareness and agency, the question is, how much will our lives reflect and engage with that, and how much won't they? But that's where life's going. And it's fun to think about. So why not think about it? Hi, I'm Dan Rose. All knowledge begins with a paradigm. And out of that paradigm comes an idea, an awareness that we adopt, reject, or synthesize into something better. It doesn't become wisdom, it doesn't become useful until we take action, until we integrate it into not only our thoughts, but our feelings, our body, our words, and our way of being. For that to occur, we have to move from the passive media paradigm into more active engagement. In the link below, in the More Information section, is an invitation to join a very small, deliberately filtered, high-quality discussion with a group of people who share a common language and want to work with these ideas, with me and with one another, with the sole goal of creating 10 times more sustainable well-being for ourselves and those around us per unit of energy invested. Thank you for watching.